Is this on? Does it need to be on? Okay. Good afternoon, I guess good morning, everybody, and thanks for coming out here today. We just wanted to take a few minutes to let you know where we think negotiations are at and how, we hope this will get resolved in time for our October deadline, which will be, I think, the third deadline that we've had. Just a little bit about the bigger financial picture and where BART's at, because I think it's important and relevant to these conversations. We kind of came into these negotiations knowing that we needed to balance some very important needs. We obviously need to keep an operation going. When I joined this board quite a few years ago, there were about 260,000 people on an average weekday that use BART. Now it's more than 400,000. So it's a very, very important system to the region. And I think we proved that last weekend when the bridge was closed and we were carrying huge numbers of people. BART is really a lifeline, and we need to keep this system going. And keeping it going is expensive. It's expensive in terms of personnel and investment. We, in many ways, though, have been coasting on investments that were made, in some cases, decades ago. And if we're going to continue to grow and expand this system to serve future needs, we need to keep investing. So a lot of our original equipment is still in use. It's now over 40 years old and needs to be replaced. And we need to make ongoing investments to add capacity to the system so we can grow with the Bay Area. And then the other thing, of course, we're facing, and local governments all around California are facing the same thing, is a lot of the benefits that we offer our employees are increasing in cost. So we've seen double-digit increases in medical insurance costs over the past decade. We've seen pension costs going up much faster than inflation. So these are all of the things we need to balance. And we went into these negotiations knowing this, knowing that our workers, who've actually worked very, very, very hard over the last few years as we've cut positions and as ridership has grown, we're expecting more. They got a very modest wage increase. We were fortunate we didn't have to do the layoffs. We didn't have to do the cuts to services, the furloughs, the things that other government agencies did 4 years ago. But our employees didn't get what they were expecting. They didn't get what they felt like they deserved. They were hoping that with an improving economy that they would get more this time. So we knew that there were those employee expectations out there. We need to balance those with all of our obligations as a district. So we began negotiating in earnest in April of this year. We've continued to negotiate, and we're scheduled to resume negotiations with our two largest unions next week. Negotiations with the other unions are, of course, ongoing. There's been a lot of attention to, how often we're negotiating and how often we're meeting and all of those sorts of things. I think the thing for me and for a lot of my colleagues on the board looking at these negotiations that's troubling is not that we're not meeting enough. It's just that we're not seeing the progress towards settlement that we really hoped that we would be seeing by this point. We've put forward some offers, and the most recent offer was a 10% wage increase over the 4 years. We heard from our employees that they said, we want to see an increase in our take-home pay in each of the 4 years. And we have an offer on the table that will do that for them. We have asked for additional contributions to pension. We worked out a thing for medical where 3/4 of our employees, the people in lower cost programs, won't see any increase in their medical copay. Only the people who stay in the costliest programs would see a big increase. So we accomplished two of our goals, which was an increased contribution to pension to help defray those increased costs and a way to contain medical costs. But we've done so in a way that offers our employees what they were asking us for, which is an increase in each of the 4 years of the contract. So now, as we sit at the table and we've been offering these agreements, we haven't really seen the union agreements or the union proposals coming down into what we feel is the settlement zone, what we feel is a reasonable amount of money to give to them, one that's in line with any other public agency contract in the region. We have some charts here, but what we've seen is these union proposals have stayed, rather stubbornly in 20% or more for the term of the contract, and we just don't feel like that's going to get us there. So as we move forward next week and over the next few weeks, what we're really looking for is some sign of movement into the settlement zone. I think the feeling that on the board's part is that we've moved a lot, that we have made a good faith effort to try and get to settlement before these deadlines, and we just haven't seen that commensurate movement on the other side. So what we're asking you, the media and the public, to pay attention to is these proposals, and not just the how often are they meeting and when are they meeting, but the substance of them. Are we going to get to a deal? And that means movement, and that means compromise. And we feel like we made the good faith efforts to get there, and we really need to see that commitment on the other side. So. You have some of the details of the proposals here. I've got experts. I've got Carter Mao, and I've got Paul Overseer here to explain any details of those. But if you have any questions for me, I'll take those now. And if you have any questions for the subject matter experts, do you guys want to jump in or explain any of this before I go? Yeah, sure. Sure. The state mediator has been very helpful. We sort of realized this was a tense negotiation very early on in the negotiation. We asked a mediator to come in. What they do is they've been scheduling the meetings. They say, all right, BART, we'd like you to meet with SCIU, and we'd like and discuss supplementals this week, and so on and so forth. So they've been scheduling the subject matter of the meetings and the dates that we meet. They've also been taking proposals back and forth. So, we basically, we do have some FaceTime, but it's pretty limited. Most of what we're doing is the mediator says, BART, I'd like a proposal for you on generals or on wages. We give them that proposal. They take it to the unions. It's discussed. They respond to us. They can say the same thing to the unions. SEIU, ATU would like a proposal from you on supplementals. So that's how the mediator has been involved in this. So very integral to the whole process. Yes, during the cooling off period, and during the last cooling off period and before. Yeah.
But since this now appears to be this mediator process, appears to be a complete and total failure.
Yeah.
What about just direct eye-to-eye, face-to-face negotiations, forgetting about what's convenient for the mediator, forgetting about what's convenient for the various parties concerned, and worrying about what's convenient for the riders?
Yeah. The mediators know what they're doing. We have the mediators in the process because we think it's valuable. And the mediators can't work miracles, right? If the two sides aren't really interested in, coming together, the mediator can't tell us what proposals, for example, to put across the table. The two sides need to do that. And if they're not willing to do it through a mediator, then they may not be willing to do it face to face.
But it's very clear that they're not doing it through the mediator.
Yeah.
How can you say that the mediator is being helpful when you are clearly no closer to a deal than you were before the strike, during the strike, after the strike? When are you guys going to sit down and, let's face it, act like adults and settle this thing?
Yeah. Well, we think we're closer. At least the district proposal that we put out, we think, is a proposal we'd like the unions to take to their membership. So it's not true to say that we're not closer. We think the mediator process is working. If we decide it's not working, both parties want to stop using them, we can. But I haven't heard either party say the mediator is not making a contribution.
What's the whole point of the 60-day cooling off period for negotiations to continue? And if we're over 30 days, close to 30 days or over since the cooling off period started, and there's been no face-to-face meetings, what have you been doing?
There were some meetings immediately after the cooling off was imposed. Well, first of all, we had to prepare the findings and the presentation before the panel that decided whether the cooling off would be awarded. So that was the first week. There were also some meetings just to make sure that when we were costing a proposal. So, for example, if you were to say, a contribution to pension, if you were to backfill that completely with wage, well, what does that cost? We had some offline sessions at the suggestion of the mediator just to make sure that we were talking about the same financial terms and that we could compare apples to apples in these processes. So we feel like the time's been productively spent and we did get some clarity around that. Now we need to go back to earnest negotiations, though, and see if we can hammer out the details of this contract. I should tell you, the issues aren't really new, right? We've been talking about these same issues since April, and we've covered a lot of this ground before. So it's really, the thing we're looking for now is for these proposals to change, for these proposals to move. And that can happen in one meeting. It could happen in 300 meetings. But the answer is, the substance of these proposals has to change.
But what are you going to tell the public come October? And these guys are out marching around, and that bridge is backed up to Kingdom Come. What are you going to say to the public then about your mediator process, as opposed to what the union has constantly complained about, is that the mediator runs back and forth, but you guys don't sit down and look them eye to eye.
Again, we don't know that that's the problem. We could look them eye to eye on a proposal like this, or we could have it come through the mediator. Just the proposal has to be a workable proposal, and that's not what we're seeing yet.
How many times have the unions been willing to meet in the past 30 days? We're almost to the midway point. So have there been any sessions during the cooling off period?
As I mentioned, there was the prep for the cooling off, and then I believe there were some informal sessions. The first sessions scheduled by the mediator will resume next week.
So do you guys have anything scheduled?
Yeah, next week.
Okay.
Next week, yeah.
Tom, you know,
Yeah.
one of the things
Mhm.
the union has said in the
Yeah.
past, and they probably will say today, that
Yeah.
they don't like to negotiate in
Mhm.
public. You know,
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
lot of specifics, and here you are throwing out a
Right.
lot of numbers here.
Mhm.
So what would you say to that if they say that again today?
You know, it's funny, what the district wants to talk about is actually the substance of the proposals, right? Because we think we have a strong argument here that we're offering a fair settlement. I think what the unions are much more interested in talking about is, you know, the process and how awful our mediator is, or I'm sorry, how often our negotiator is and how awful our general manager is and all of that. All of the stuff that I think is marginal or peripheral to what's going on here. We really think it's very important at this point that people understand the offer that's on the table and what we're offering our employees, and also the costs of these various things, because 2/3 of the money that we bring in comes from riders. So, you know, when we're looking at being fair to workers, we have to look at the workers who work for BART and being fair to them. We also need to be fair to the workers who are paying those fares, because that's what pays those workers. So we really think it's important to understand these things. We're not trying to give away anything that's happening at the table. All of the figures that you see here are proposals that are public, that were part of the fact finding. Yeah.
Josie Mooney, the chief negotiator for ACIU, claims that BART has not addressed their concerns about safety.
Yeah.
And that there are some other issues on the table that are unresolved, and that until they are, they don't want to take the proposal to their members for a vote.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
There's safety proposals from both sides. There's district safety proposals and union safety proposals. They've been negotiating all of those. The ones that are actually part of the contract. I mean, I've been listening closely in the boardroom. A lot of the issues around safety are issues around capital priorities. So we've heard a lot about lighting in tunnels. We've heard a lot about lighting in shops. Those are issues that aren't settled at the negotiating table. Those are part of our capital budget. So, and when we were adopting the capital budget this year, you know, there was a lot of silence on those issues. So I think all the ones that can be addressed at the negotiating table, we're negotiating and we're trying to address. A lot of the issues are, you know, extra staffing, which we'd like to do, but of course, if you're paying everybody a much higher wage, and you need to stay within a certain budget, then extra staffing is hard to do. The other issues have been capital projects. So there's the safety issues that they brought forward. It's a big pile of issues, some of which are negotiable, others are not.
John, you mentioned
Yeah.
proposals
Sure.
toward settlement. Settlement have been slow in coming.
Yeah,
Come October 10th,
yeah.
what do you think is going to happen?
I don't want to predict. What I hope will happen is we'll reach a mutually agreeable settlement and the union membership will ratify it. But in order to do that, again, we need to see proposals that are reasonable, that the district can accept and that we can afford. The other thing they need to do is take these proposals to their unions. One thing that concerns me was at AC Transit, they thought they had an agreement. And their negotiator, the union negotiators and the AC Transit management said, hey, this is the agreement. They took it to their membership. The membership rejected it. And so they're back to square one. So that's one of the reasons we've been pretty insistent that said, hey, you know, we've got a proposal on the table. Take it to your members. Because we don't want to be in that spot, think we're done, have the Bay Area think we're done, and then have the membership reject it, and then have all that same nightmare of, is it a strike? What's going to happen, et cetera. Kind of come back to us. So, you know, what we're hoping is before October 10th, we could have a tentative agreement, and we would love to see a membership vote on a proposal before that date, just so everybody knows that this question is actually finally settled.
I want to get back
Yeah.
to the subject of negotiating sessions on the general proposal.
Yeah.
Give you an opportunity to respond to correspondence that Cron 4 has received regarding the union requesting dates and management saying, in essence, the last offer was final, engaging in ongoing discussions would not be fruitful. So you say that you're available to meet. They said that they want to meet, but this says that you're not willing to meet?
Well, they have not responded yet to our request that they take this proposal to their membership. So, we haven't heard anything on that. The other thing, of course, is that, if we keep moving, if we keep adding money to the contract and we're not seeing that same movement on the other side, then we're just bargaining against ourselves. It's just if we put more money on and put more money on, put more money on, and then there's no change on the other side, it's not going to get us to where we need to go. That's not negotiation, that's just capitulation. So, if they're ready to discuss meaningful proposals, they say, hey, we've got a great proposal and we know you're going to really like it. I think we're all ears. But if the dynamic is going to be what it's been for the last few weeks, then it's not constructive. And we can't keep bringing back proposals that, just add more money and not see any movement on the other side.
Just to follow up on that,
Yeah.
unions are also saying that their negotiating team has not been given the time
Yeah.
to caucus, to
Yeah.
prepare a response to your labor
Sure.
proposal, and that was the status quo before the
Okay.
cooling off period, but since then they haven't been given the time. Why is that?
Well, they can caucus on their own time. That's not a impediment.
But prior to that, they were given time, and then the 60-day
Yeah.
cooling off period, why has that changed during the 60-day cooling off period?
I don't know that it has changed. I can't really speak to that. It is a more complicated process on the ATU SEIU negotiation. So what has to happen there is they both have big negotiating teams, and at least on the generals, the proposals have to be joint proposals. So what happens is, they need to come up with a proposal that's, acceptable to both negotiating teams, a joint proposal, they bring it to the district responds, and then it goes back. Then there's the caucusing and so on. So it's part of the process. But, how long that needs to take and how much time they need to spend doing it, that's hopefully what these 60 days are for.
To make sure I'm
Yeah.
clear.
Sure.
What you're saying to me today or to us today
Uh-huh.
is that, Nick, we can keep throwing numbers
Yeah.
out back and forth,
Mhm.
but until they actually take this to their membership for a vote,
Yeah.
it's a waste of time because we don't know that their members will reject this offer because
Yeah.
they haven't done that.
Yeah, and we've seen that twice. We've seen it 4 years ago in BART negotiations, where ATU's negotiators negotiated an agreement and the membership rejected it, and then we saw it more recently at AC Transit. So it's certainly a concern, and it should be a concern for everybody in the Bay Area, because it means you're not done. The contract negotiations aren't complete when you have a tentative agreement. You have to make sure that the union membership ratifies, and then, of course, the BART board will ratify. Now, if we have an agreement that our negotiators bring to us, I don't expect problems with BART board ratification, but I think that the union ratification is a little uncertain. So we need to build some time into the process for that, just to make sure that there's no chance of a work interruption.
What do you say to the public come October the 11th
Yeah.
if the BART system is not?
What do we say to the public? Well, it depends on what happens between now and then.
Well, let's assume
Yeah.
that nothing
Yeah.
happens, which is
Yeah.
track record so far.
Yeah.
What will you say to them if there's a strike going on and they are denied their system?
I think we'll say that we have offered a very fair wage proposal, and we got no wage proposal in return that was fair and reasonable. And we might say that if it's true, by then that the unions never took a 10% wage increase to their membership. That's the thing I'm concerned about. Is the unions go out on strike with a 10% wage offer on the table.
How would you respond
Mm-hmm.
to, I guess, accusations from labor that thought is pretty much stalling because of the way that it seems that during the strike,
Yeah.
the public perception was very favorable toward management and sort of not as favorable toward the union. And so it's been said that you guys are riding that momentum and hope that you could just put
Yeah.
it off and that the public will break the strike
Yeah.
by demanding that the union stop. But in recent weeks, we've seen sort of a little bit of shift
Yeah.
in the media. So I guess my question is,
Yeah.
how do you respond to accusations of bad faith bargaining? Because they won't invoke these strikes specifically.
I think with numbers, I just wanted to bring your attention to this summary of the different proposals. So this really shows, in numbers, how the district proposals have moved, if you want to pass these out. We've moved a lot. We've continued to.
That shows the movement.
Yeah, it shows the movement from beginning to end in the proposal. So I think if you look at this, the story of, okay, BART's not moving, we're not putting anything real on the table, is belied by the facts. Yeah.
Thank
One
you.
of those for you, and there's others. Okay. So I'll do one more question, then we should wrap up. Or I'll actually give you a chance to.
Tom, you can stay with us all day.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I actually can't, but
So what are the next?
glad to know that you've got all day to spend with me. Is there nothing else happening in the Bay Area? Yeah.
The next sessions on
Yeah.
the general proposals are scheduled for when?
Next week, right? Yeah.
Would you say next week, next
9th,
Monday?
10th, 12th. ATU is 9th and 10th, SCIU is 12th.
Mhm.
And then they'll agree on more dates at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, so there's been progress on supplementals. We, have been able to get tentative agreements on numbers of the supplementals. So we need to put all those to bed as well. The proposals that you see here focus on the financials because these are the big costly items and the ones, frankly, that have the biggest impact on our budget. But the supplementals are important too. And the good news is there's been progress on those. All right. Thank you all.